Hey, welcome into another Fat Guy podcast. I am the Fat Guy. Most people call me Brett Mason. A quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I have no formal medical training. I have spent probably literally hundreds of hours studying ketogenic diet and specifically, but diet in general, going all the way back to my studies of a vegan diet, plant-based diet, health in general, nutrition in general. It really became my life when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. When you are determined to help your mother live as long and as healthily as she can, you take it seriously. I left my job during that time and spent really almost 5 years of doing nothing but studying nutrition for my mom. Mainly targeted at cancer, but what I found along my way was that the parallels between nutrition and cancer were the same in so many ways as nutrition and obesity and things like type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome and things like that. So you should always consult with a doctor before you begin any kind of a diet, and you should have them monitor you along the way. If you have a doctor that tells you you're crazy for wanting to try a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, you should probably try to find another doctor, but you need a doctor nonetheless. So I've lost 120 pounds so far. I did start out on a plant-based diet was my first attempt, and I had success at it, by the way, for a lot of the same reasons a ketogenic diet works. Ultimately, that crashed and failed because of the diet being so difficult, and I wound up in a situation where it was impossible for me to eat plant-based, which meant I was left with completely different options than I'd been eating for the previous year, and I was confused, and I didn't know what to eat. I was trying to do the best I could, and it turned out horrible. And right after that, I had came into a lot of information about how a ketogenic diet could help my mother, and found out it could help me, and so that began that path. Nevertheless, I won't delve too much into that. Today we're going to be reading podcast listener mail. So I would encourage you can shoot me messages. If you follow the Fat Guy Podcast Facebook page, you can shoot me a message on there. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, Brett Mason, you can find me. You can shoot me a message on there. Of course, we're on all the social medias under Fat Guy Podcast. So whether it be Instagram, Snapchat, which I highly recommend, by the way, or Twitter, just look for Fat Guy Podcast and shoot me messages. This message is from Cindy. I'm not going to give any of the rest of her name, but Cindy says, "Hi, Brett. I'm asking about the grass-fed meats you talk about. Where do you find them? I usually shop at Winn-Dixie, and I haven't really noticed that they have them there. By the way, I started my keto journey on October the 23rd. After listening to your podcast, I've lost 19 pounds. I do have struggles with knowing if I'm in ketosis or not based on my blood meter, but your podcast helped me understand the process. Thank you so much." So, sure, Cindy, you're very welcome. That's the goal of the podcast, is to help people understand. So, let's talk about grass-fed meats, why you should care, first of all. And we've talked about this in other podcasts, but we'll cover it briefly here. First of all, grass-fed is the way the good Lord intended cows to be raised. Humans can't eat grass. We don't have the digestive ability to break down grass, okay? Cows do. And from that, they extract a lot of nutrients that can be difficult for humans to extract from certain foods. So cows roam the pasture. That's the way your great-great-grandparents raised them, and your great-grandparents and your grandparents. And if you're in a farming family, possibly your parents. But along the way, we moved to factory farming, and cows are stuck in stalls and feedlots, and they're eating grain. Grain is not a cow's diet. It was never intended to be a cow's diet. It should never be a cow's diet. And when you eat grain-fed cattle, now their bad diet becomes your bad diet. And there are some significant differences between grass-fed beef and grain-fed beef. One other quick notation: if you can get grass-fed, grass-finished beef, that's the absolute best. Grass-fed means they fed on grass most of their entire life. And then before slaughter, they brought them in and they put them on grain for I don't know how long because I'm not a farmer. But, a period of months, I think, maybe 1 to 3 months or something like that to do a final fattening up phase before the slaughter. So while nearly all their life they were grass-fed, they were, loaded up on grains, and study into the meat has shown that does affect it. It loses some of or actually a fair amount of the gains. Still, that's better than eating a cow that was fed grains its entire life. So the biggest one would be omega-3s. Omega-3s offset the bad effects of a high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Now, these are essential amino acids, and you want your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio to be closer to equal. And in the standard American diet, the omega-6 ratio is really high. Like 6 to 1, 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1, depending on how poorly you eat, which causes all kind of internal damage and inflammation. And inflammation, first of all, causes all manner of disease, but it also keeps you in a fat state. This constant state of inflammation and internal cell damage and other things that happen causes your body to retain fluid. It causes your body to retain fat. It just keeps you in an unhealthy state, and so it makes it nearly impossible to lose weight. So when you're eating, beef, or you're eating, butter, for example, you want grass-fed. You want to get the best possible fuel for your body, and so it does cost more. Grass-fed beef costs more, and grass-fed, grass-finished is harder to find and cost even more. I have people that listen to the podcast from all over the country, so this won't apply to you, but it may to your town. But here in our town, Dothan, Alabama, we have a couple of farms locally that sell grass-fed and grass-finished products. So I would encourage you to look into that. I know Working Cows Dairy does, you can get they sell full-fat yogurt, which is hard to find, but their other products are grass-fed, so that's always an option as well. And you get it super fresh. Then you can go right out to the farm and get it, and it's just you won't get food fresher than that. So that'd be my first comment about the grass-fed meat. Where can you find it was the question. I've found it everywhere I've shopped. I don't shop Winn-Dixie a lot, but I have bought it there a couple times. It's in Walmart. As a matter of fact, I like to shop at Publix because that place is amazing. Yes, it's more expensive. But I actually have found a better grass-fed selection at Walmart than I've found at Publix. So you can find it at Walmart. You can find it in Publix. You'll run across a couple of name brands that become very familiar to you because I've seen the same name brands in Publix, in Walmart, and Winn-Dixie. I can't think of what they are off the top of my head, but you'll notice them. And they're wrapped a little bit differently. They come in these pre-sealed packages instead of how your regular beef will be wrapped. It'll be wrapped by the store. He's got the styrofoam bottom and the plastic wrap around it. These packages will look different. They'll be factory packaging, and so it'll have a pretty logo on top and the name of the company that sells it, and it'll say grass-fed on it. So it'll stand out. Once you see it, you'll start knowing what to look for. So you can buy it most anywhere. As far as grass-fed butter goes, the most convenient and easy to find is Kerrygold. Kerrygold's imported, and it's grass-fed, and it is delicious, and I love Kerrygold. So I would look out for that for your butters. Cheeses, I would say, is more difficult to find, and I don't know that I've seen any. If I have, it's only been 1 or 2 times that I've seen cheeses that said grass-fed on the package. What you can do is research the companies and find out what companies use grass-fed dairy to make their cheese. I would say a lot of the times those that are imported often will. So that's one heads-up tip for you. I don't consume a ton of cheese, so it's not something I worry about too much. And honestly, on a keto diet, you shouldn't consume that much cheese. most people, and I really do mean most, 70, 80% of people have a problem with ketosis when they consume much cheese at all. And even worse, if they try to drink milk. Milk is not a ketogenic drink, okay? You don't drink milk. Now, what dairy products would you consume on a ketogenic diet? Heavy whipping cream is one. It's used in a lot of different ways. It's great for coffee. It's very high fat, no carbs. So you cream up. You don't buy creamers in a package. Go to the refrigerated section and get you some good old fashioned either whipping cream or heavy whipping cream. And there's not much difference between the two. I think whipping cream has 45 calories a tablespoon and heavy whipping cream has 50. I think the carbs are about the same. There's really no carbs to speak of in a tablespoon. I think once you get up to like 4 or 5 tablespoons or something, you're hitting a carb. So it's fractional. Not sure fractionated is a word. And so my last comment on Cindy's message would be about worrying if you're in ketosis or not. So worrying about if you're in ketosis or not is just not really something you should worry about. Now, once you achieve it, the benefits are massive. But as far as wanting to check, especially with a blood glucose meter, you're not really going to be able to tell if you're in ketosis based on your blood glucose meter. I'll give you a great example. I did a 5-day fast. Now, when you fast, your ketones get higher and higher and higher. The longer you go without food, you get into a really high, deep level of ketosis. And this is why after about day 4 or day 5, it's relatively easy to fast. Your ketones are so high, hunger becomes basically a non-issue. You have to get to that point, though. My ketones got up to right at 4. And, for weight loss ketosis, you want them to be around 0.5 to 1 maybe. So I was 4 to 8 times that amount. So I had really high levels of ketones on my last day of my fast, and I felt amazing. It was incredible. And I'm speaking of which, I'm about to fast again here, and I'm going to shoot for an extended fast, but I'll save that for another podcast. So my point is while I was testing my ketones all that week, and I was testing my blood sugar, there's no correlation. Now, most of those days of that week, I had really low fasting blood sugars. They were in the upper 70s. I hit 76, I think, 78, something like that. But there was one day I had a really high blood sugar, and I hadn't eaten anything in a couple of days, and my blood sugar was in the 90s. And my ketones had continued to climb. And instead of my blood sugar showing even lower, it jumped up for some reason. So there's not a rock-solid parallel between blood sugars and ketones. If you really want to know what your ketones are, you should buy you a ketone checking meter. They're very expensive. So that's just, something. I just wouldn't invest the money in it unless you're into doing logging your stats every day and doing extensive bar graphs and, like I am. I'm nerdy. I'm into that. I want to know numbers. I have an app on my phone called the Tracker app. And I track a host of variables every day, and I can chart it out on a plot graph and see over time what it looks like. So are you in ketosis? Well, if you eat 20 grams or less of carbs a day for long enough, you'll definitely be in ketosis. For some people, you get there in 3 to 4 days. Some people, it's 5 to 7. Some people may take up to 10 days to get into ketosis. Just depends. It depends on how efficient your body is at burning the glucose out of your muscles. Once you get all the glucose burned out of your muscles and the only glucose you're getting every day is that you're consuming, which is 20 grams or less, you will be in ketosis. The other thing is you'll notice how you feel. So you won't get ravenously hungry anymore. That doesn't say you won't feel hunger. It just won't be that ravenous hunger like I could eat an entire cow right now. It won't be that. It'll be a more gentle nudging kind of hunger. And the other thing you'll notice is you can easily go hours and hours between meals. You can go 4, 5, 6, 7 hours between meals and it not bother you. You may think about eating, but you won't have that ravenous, oh my God, it's been 3 hours since I've eaten, I'm dying. Those are the best ways to know if you're in ketosis. And so, just eat the right macros and you'll be fine. And getting into ketosis is not about how high the fat is, it's about how low the carbs is. Now, a ketogenic diet is about low carb, high fat. It's the combination of the two. But as far as getting into ketosis has nothing to do with the fat. It has all to do with the carbs. You get the carbs down to 20 or less a day, and you'll achieve ketosis. Eating the high fat is for satiety. The reason you eat high fat is because high fat keeps you satiated longer. You can eat, if you get enough fat in a meal, you won't be hungry. Hunger won't be an issue anymore. And the other thing it does is it begins training your body to burn fat as fuel. And so you keep that fat level up there, and your body gets seeing that as, it's only getting 20 or less carbs a day, but it's getting all this fat. It's like, okay, fat clearly is what I need to be eating, and your body slowly switches over to becoming a fat burning machine. So I hope that those answer the questions for today. If you have questions, by all means, message me. I'll do my best to answer them. Again, on all the social medias. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. It's Fat Guy Podcast is what you want to look for. I don't do much on Twitter. That wouldn't be the way I'd recommend for you to contact me. My two primary means, or three really, I've split them equally as far as communication, would be Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. Now, if you Snapchat me, I may screenshot it because I may use it in a future podcast, but I won't call you out by your full name. May use your first name, so don't worry about that. And if you say, hey, don't use this message in any way, shape, form, or fashion, I'll respect that as well. All right, so follow us on the social media, and the best way to get these podcasts when they're updated is by downloading the Spreaker app. It's like a radio speaker, except there's an R after the P. So it's Spreaker, Spreaker. Download that Spreaker app. I would set up an account because it will allow you to follow me, but you don't have to. And search for Fat Guy Podcast, and you'll find the podcast. You can hit the favorite button, and so it'll be easy to find from then on when you open the app. And you'll get all the new episodes delivered right to that app as soon as I update them. And you'll have the entire archive right there in front of you. You can just scroll right on down and just find any episode that interests you. So it makes it really convenient. That is by far the easiest way to listen to this show. It's the Spreaker app, and it doesn't matter what kind of phone you have, pretty much. You can find it in your respective app stores. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll talk to you next time.